Hi, everyone, and welcome to our special National Infertility Awareness Week series. Infertility impacts 1 in 6 people, yet the journey to parenthood through surrogacy remains financially and emotionally challenging for so many. That's why I'm thrilled I got to speak with Zach French, co founder and CEO of the Surrogacy Foundation. Zach and his wife Alexandra are on a mission to make surrogacy more accessible by breaking down financial barriers, advocating for ethical practices, and providing crucial education and support to intended parents. You'll get to hear Zach and Alexandra's story, discuss the costs of surrogacy, and how their nonprofit is working to create a national grant to help make family building possible for more people. Whether you're personally impacted by infertility or simply want to be a source of support, we are all in fertility, and this conversation is one of hope, clarity, and valuable insight. Enjoy. Me, you, and who? Who knew it would take more than 2 people to have a baby? In a world where infertility is no longer a taboo topic, this podcast will take you through all of the different aspects of surrogacy and egg donation through the lens of many who walk this journey in different ways. My name is Whitney Hall, and I am a 2-time surrogate, now turned surrogacy coordinator for Egg Donor and Surrogate Solutions, the very agency I used when I chose to carry for 2 amazing families. With this podcast, it is our goal to help guide and support you as you learn about what it takes to grow a family in an alternative way, as well as hear inspiring and beautiful stories of how this path has changed lives forever. We can't wait for you to hear about just one more way happy families are created every day. Zach, I am so excited that you are here. It is National Infertility Awareness Week, and I am just so pumped that we get to talk to you.
Well, I'm really excited to be here too. And National Infertility Awareness Week has a special place in both mine and my wife's heart, as we're both advocates for Resolve during this time. And we know how important it is to spread the word.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for those who don't know, National Infertility Awareness Week is really just all about exactly like you said. It's, just advocating for policies to improve fertility care, bringing awareness to infertility. And one of, my first thoughts when it comes to, a surrogacy journey, like if people, a lot of times whenever people are thinking about, just all of that, you kind of look at like the baby pictures and you think about the emotional side of things and, just all of that. But then you kind of get into the nitty gritty and you're like, whoa, just the expense of it. So before we, just get started, can you maybe go back to, you kind of already made mention to it a little bit, but why is this, just so near and dear to your heart, just as far as advocating for infertility, surrogacy, egg donation, just the whole thing?
Of course, of course. So my wife and I have our own fertility journey. We were very fortunate early on that we were able to conceive naturally for my older son, who's now 7. But in 2019, we were kind of rocked with some news that my wife had breast cancer. And while it's not a guarantee, the doctor did suggest that we preserve our fertility in order to make sure that we could grow our family or have the option to grow our family after she was
Yeah.
done with treatment.
And that's
Uh,
amazing, just right there, that a doctor would even like think
right.
ahead to that.
It's
Just in
surprising
women's
how
health in general.
it's surprisingly uncommon.
Yeah.
I hear quotes as high as 50% of oncologists don't force their patients to at least consider preserving their fertility before they start treatment. And you can always talk to her and she'll tell you we have 3 weeks. And her surgical oncologist said, I've got you appointments at here, here, and here. Your husband's going here. You're going there. You're going to get this done. Then we're going to start treatment and we're going to go.
Wow.
And so we were very fortunate. Logistically, everything was handled. That was the last thing on our mind, by the way. We just
Of
wanted to
course it is.
answer. And so
Yeah.
we went on that journey, and we were fortunate that treatment went well. After about 6 or 12 rounds, actually, I think, of chemo, double mastectomy, and over 30 rounds of radiation and continuous infusions. She's now cancer free.
Love that.
But the
Yes.
big
But
but is that we had to use alternative family building to grow our family. And we didn't know anything about it. And we didn't know anything about infertility other than a few friends we knew that had gone through IVF and maybe gotten a grant around it. But there was nothing around third party for sure. And
Yeah.
so when we were done with that journey, we reached out to the one friend we knew that had used surrogacy because we knew that had to be our only route to grow our family genetically.
Mm-hmm.
We reached out to the agency they used in Atlanta, and it was a great meeting. And we ended up having a very successful surrogacy journey afterwards. Uh,
Mm.
but all this stuff is like so much to take in. It's such an expensive process. And that kind of led us to this new stage of our life where we decided that we wanted to start a nonprofit in the space to help increase access to surrogacy.
Yeah. Well, I think you really hit the nail on the head as far as okay, your world's just been rocked. Your wife is getting this diagnosis. You already, I mean, so much happens anytime there's, you hear the big C word of cancer, right? And exactly to your point, the fact that your doctor went ahead and made those plans for you. And then even then after all of those appointments, like you had the 12 rounds of chemo, you had the radiation, we had a double mastectomy. Like that isn't even like, okay, great, I had those appointments. Bye. Not even thinking about that. And then to your point, now whenever you guys are thinking about family building, you don't even know where to go and how to get started. And then once you get started, it's just overwhelm for sure, just with information. And then yes, the expense of it. It is. It's an expensive process for sure. There's no way to get around that at this point. But it is an expensive process and I love the fact that you and your wife have, just taken that and run with it. So with that, tell us a little bit more about the Surrogacy Foundation and just what inspired you to take that further.
Absolutely. So we went and met with a wonderful agency and a wonderful agency owner in Len Goldman. But even with that caring person helping us, I always tell people it was like walking through a wind tunnel because you're so
Mm,
surprised at everything that they tell you. And there's so much uncertainty because pregnancy is complicated,
yeah,
right? Things
yeah.
can go wrong. And so there's uncertainty as to whether you will succeed. There's uncertainty as to whether you'll be able to afford it and how much it will
Hmm.
cost. And so when we were fortunate enough to complete our journey and have our beautiful baby girl Addison in 2021, we started thinking, how can we give back?
Yeah.
It's been a very big part of our lives. Culturally, we are Jewish, and ever since we grew up, both of us were involved with nonprofits, constantly trying to give back.
Mm.
Never run one, never started one really,
Sure.
but we wanted to advocate. And we knew that breast cancer, fortunately, is a very supported area in that space.
Yeah.
But when we looked around for surrogacy, there was almost nothing. And there was not a single organization that offered grants that covered the full cost of surrogacy for anyone. And so we said, okay, maybe this is where we need to go. And I remember it was like a eureka moment for Alex. She's like, babe. She like taps me on the shoulder and she's like, you must understand,
You
this is our opportunity. And I'm like, okay, all right. And like we
sure, I'm
started,
along for the ride.
like most happy marriages, happy wife,
Yes.
happy life.
I love it.
Uh, and we
Yes.
started to pursue it, and it was true. There just wasn't availability around support in the space, widespread. And so we started it with a very simple goal, which is we're going to find a way to raise $100,000 and partner with professionals in the industry and offer a grant for the full cost of surrogacy that anybody can apply to.
Yeah.
And
I,
it
I
was
want
just,
to emphasize that, like the full cost of it, because it isn't, it's more than just what you see about, just paying to have a surrogate, paying for her compensation. There's everything else around it. There's all of the medications, there's the attorneys, just there's so many different parts. And so that idea of a full coverage is amazing.
yeah. And it's like, and even then we had to kind of reel ourselves in because base costs, as we call them, all the stuff that you have to pay for to complete a journey are different than the variable costs, which is the different things that can go wrong or instances
Yeah.
that can come up that
Yeah.
cause that cost to rise. And so as we were thinking about raising the money, we were also thinking about how do we determine who a winner of this grant is, right?
Mm,
And so we tackled one problem at a time, as you often
Sure.
do, especially because we both had careers and this was done on the side. And we did what people commonly do at nonprofits, like call up all your friends and family, like who wants to help us out here?
Yeah.
Right. And we were like, we're going to host a fundraiser in like 3 months and we're going to raise $100,000. And luckily our friends and family were like, that doesn't seem achievable. What, what about in a year? And we're like, okay, that sounds a lot better.
We love the people that give us a reality check for sure.
Exactly. That's what they're there for.
Yes.
And so we did that. We decided that since before we had kids, we were really good at throwing parties, and so we are like, let's just throw like a really awesome party because most people don't know what surrogacy is, but most people know us. And we have a
There
big
you go.
network of friends. And so if we show them a really good time and tell them our story, we felt like that was an opportunity that to like resonate with them and they would give back.
Yeah.
And so we threw this party and we came up with this idea that it was the anti-gala gala, that we didn't want it to be stuffy and boring with tables. We wanted it to be open
Mm.
with dance floors and partying
Yes.
and everything like that. And it worked. We were very fortunate. We had almost 300 people show up to the
Oh
event
my
in our
gosh.
first year, and
Yeah.
like 99% of them had no idea what surrogacy was,
Wow.
but they knew us and they believed in us. And that was just such a testament to how lucky we were to have that kind of network and village around us. And it was funny. I always tell this story. About 3 months before our first event, Alex got invited to speak at Seeds,
Yeah.
which for the listeners is the
Hmm.
ethics organization around surrogacy and egg donation. And we didn't know what to expect, right? We
Sure.
had our own journey, and then we had the one people we talked to, and we go to this thing, and it turns out there's this huge community of people that have been fighting this fight for 20 years, trying to make
Yeah.
surrogacy more accessible and ethical and everything like that. And so, again, we went through the wind tunnel, but in the best way possible, and we started to build our network. But apparently, there are a lot of people that have our idea but don't follow through. And so most
Mm.
of the people we met were like, bless your heart, as we say in the South.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you're going to do it. And so I didn't get to network a ton in that sense. But when we raised the money, I went back to those same people and I said, hey, by the way, we just raised 6 figures. We're ready to give it away. And all of a sudden, the kind of floodgates opened up with people that were there
Sure.
to
Thank you
support
for your
us.
blessing. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. And it was just like, whoa, like this is going to be great. But there's a reason that an organization like this didn't exist before. And it's not because it wasn't needed, it's because it's hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard to, one, have a successful surrogacy journey without grants or anything like that, right?
Sure.
And
Sure.
so now you add in the grant aspect and how much you need these people to be successful and how long it takes to show the actual results of that grant. And so we started to think a lot about, when we were talking to those people, how do we mitigate the risk of this not going well as much as possible? And like, what are the kind of questions we should ask? And like, what are the kind of people we should look for? And that's when we
Mm.
started to uncover like exactly how we should judge this and how we could keep it objective. And we assembled a review committee with medical and finance professionals and all that. So,
Mm. Yeah. I mean, it is. It's a huge undertaking. It really is. Because like you said, you have this great, amazing idea, tap, tap, tap on the shoulder. Listen, you get so excited. Okay, in 3 months, we're having this amazing party. And then whenever you start getting into the nitty-gritty of it, I mean, it is. You just keep uncovering stone after stone after stone of, well, what about this? What about this? What about
right.
this?
Right.
I love that. Whenever you were talking about um, a committee for review and mitigating risk, that is in reference to applicants.
Right, right. So we raised the money in February of 2023, and then we immediately had to think about how are we going to review these grants? What are the
Yeah.
applications going to look like? And so were fortunate. We kind of went around to different organizations that supported fertility and kind of assembled an application. We started talking to professionals in the space about like what we
Hmm.
should be included. We knew there had to be reproductive endocrinologists or fertility doctors for short
Sure.
on this committee, and we brought in four. We were fortunate, we had 4 different clinics in Atlanta with a representative from each one. And we brought in our agency owner and attorney, Lynn Goldman, our mental health
Hmm.
professional, Lauren Berman. And we had this meeting. We're like, here's what we're thinking. Here's the application. And the
Yeah.
first thing that came up in that meeting was, well, what about the financial aspect? right? Which is kind of counterintuitive considering you're giving away money. But we actually realized that we needed CPAs and financial professionals on a committee to review these applicants' financials, because it
Yeah.
wasn't just, unfortunately, finding the person who was in the worst position financially. You actually had to find someone who could cover those variable costs if they were to come up, because we couldn't, right? And so
Sure.
we were covering all these base costs. And so, like, after that first meeting, I went out and I found a few CPAs through my network, and we assembled the financial review committee as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So that
So,
was
and for
interesting.
the listener, like whenever you're talking about those variable costs, and we've kind of already alluded to it a little bit, the base cost and variable costs. There's the base costs of like, okay, we know there's going to be medication, we know there's surrogate compensation, but then what if there's an emergency and her, insurance has just started over again? Well, now you have an out of pocket cost, or maybe her insurance doesn't work anymore and now you've got to go get an ACA policy, or just whatever kind of, that's what you're referencing to with variable costs.
Yeah. So, like, when I think about the base costs, I think about agency legal, medical cost, the cost of the surrogate. And
Yeah,
that trickles down. There's actual medical, like doctor costs, and there's mental health professional costs
yeah,
that are related to that. And like, those are the things you have to pay for if you want to complete a surrogacy journey. When we talk
yeah.
about variables, it's things like insurance exclusions, like you said. It's things that can go wrong, like if
Hmm.
they get put on bed rest and they have to get paid lost wages, that can
Right.
rack up, especially over a long period of time.
Yeah,
Twins or C-sections. There's all
yeah,
these little things that can add up to an additional $50,000 to $100,000 that a person could have to pay. And so when we
yeah.
were analyzing people's financial status, what we realized before we opened the grant application is that we needed to understand what that sweet spot was. And guess what? None of us are CPAs. Uh, and so, and so we wanted to bring those people on board that would be able to answer those questions.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, again, I really love the fact that just your foundation is, and I mean, and from your own personal standpoint, I love that the crew that you originally assembled were thinking ahead to all of that, because I think it's so easy, from a surrogate perspective, you kind of are like, oh, it's this. And you have kind of a, um, minimal view of cost, right? Like just a lot of times you'll have kind of that minimal view of, well, it's this much. But exactly like you said, there are all of those variable factors that do add up, that as a surrogate you might not necessarily see, or you kind of think about, but it's like out in the ether and you don't really have like a full understanding of what those costs look like.
Exactly.
But yeah, it can be, I mean, it can be an additional, like you said, up to $100,000 on top of what they're already, you know supposed to pay, that those base payments. So yeah, that makes total sense. So okay, I know you referenced it was Atlanta, that, or Atlanta, Georgia, where it was your grant it was just for people in Atlanta or in Georgia,
In
correct?
Georgia, yeah, Georgia residents, yeah.
Okay, okay. And you just recently, I say recently, but you did eventually award your first couple.
Right. And so let me
Yeah.
take you through that story. So
Tell me.
we awarded our, right when we were going through this process of trying to make sure that we created a fair, objective process of reviewing these applicants. I met with a guy named Adam Winder who runs
Hmm.
Seed Trust Escrow, which is like the
Yes,
largest
we have
escrow.
had Adam on the pod.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
one thing led to another. We had a great conversation, and then he found out about my background as a salesperson and technology, and entrepreneur, and an attorney. And he's like, "Can I hire you?" Uh,
Please and thank you.
yeah, and so, like, again, serendipitously, when I ended up going and running their legal and sales team, I was in the middle of all these different parties and financials and all this type of stuff that escrow
Yeah.
sees that maybe not everybody sees, let alone the surrogate, right?
Hmm.
And so I started to really understand it. And I started to really grow my network inside of the surrogacy professionals.
Yeah.
And eventually ended up being the MC for the Seeds conference that November. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And at our second soiree in 2024, we saw an increase from like maybe 5 or 10 people in the industry to like 20 or 30 people in the industry coming in to support us at this event. And
Amazing.
we were fortunate. We raised another $110,000 in profit, $220,000 total, which was a huge jump from the first year. And at the same time, all these people were like pulling it out of us. Like, how can we take this national?
Yeah.
And the big part, as you can tell how much I've spent talking about how we were reviewing the grant process, was let's make sure we're doing this right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so our second grant we launched in 2024, we kept limited to Georgia residents.
Yes.
And we awarded that grant to our second grant recipients in October of 2024, who actually just recently matched with their surrogate, which is pretty awesome.
Yay!
And
Oh, sending all the baby dust and good vibes. Yes.
it's a very magical, lots of different people involved, not just us, right, that make these things happen. And by that I mean the village, right, the people that show up to these
Yeah.
events, the agencies that provide pro bono services, the MHPs that provide pro bono services, the lawyers that provide pro bono services, the discounts that clinics
Yeah.
offer, right, to make this possible. But we got better that year, right?
Yeah.
We created rubrics, we improved the application
Yes.
process, we built it out in a software company that's a sister company of Seed Trust called Orchid. They built it out for free for us
Oh
in
my gosh.
there so that we could track exactly where people were in the application and offer help and understand where
Mm-hmm.
people were dropping off. And there was all these different insights that we could use to improve it. And
Mm-hmm.
then like as the second soiree was closing, I got this crazy idea of like maybe it's time for somebody to run this organization full time, especially if we're going to go national. And I actually ended up leaving my very, very, very good job with Adam over at Seed Trust and all the wonderful people there to run this organization full time with the mission of taking it national. So now I've been
Yeah.
on that mission for the past year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Amazing. Just amazing. Yes. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at this time there isn't a national grant. They're usually just state, or if there is a national grant, it's like very small.
Yeah, there's some smaller grants from other organizations that help people out. There's also full grants for same-sex male couples through men having babies, but there's not a full grant for anyone still nationally, right?
Yeah.
And I think look, if I'm tend to move fast and break things, as you might hear that comment, and I'm like telling my board, I'm like, let's just do it this year, and they're like,
Yeah.
let's slow it down, let's figure this out.
Yeah.
And then also at that time, very fortunate to have my best friend and cousin, who is a brand strategist, come to me and say, "Look, Zach, I've got some time now. I want to offer you $80,000 in services pro bono to help you create a memorable, meaningful brand and strategy for your foundation."
Oh my
And we
gosh.
went through this
Amazing.
process, and I tell you, it's fun because you
It
really
is.
dig into your why, right? Like they send you these he
Yeah.
sends you these questions, and he interviews you. Then we talk about like, where do you see yourself in 1 year? What's your dream headline? Where's your publication? Who says what do your donors say?
Mm.
What do your grantees say? What are you saying in this article? And they do the same thing for 10 years from now.
Oh my
And
gosh.
like try to see like what's your ultimate goal here. And for that
Yeah.
10 years we were like, Alex and I are sitting on Capitol Hill and we're advocating for regulation in this space and mandated insurance coverage to help people access this. And the
Mm-hmm.
only way we get there is by building a lot of the experience and data that's necessary to show how big this need is and how unachievable it is for so many
Yeah.
people. And so we went through that process. And at the same time, we were like, at that time, our name was Gift of Surrogacy Foundation, and it was exactly what we were doing with the grants. But we felt like if we were going to be the Surrogacy Foundation for the entire country, maybe that was the name that we needed to
Yeah,
have.
for sure. For sure.
So,
I love that. Well, and like I mean, I love that you made reference to it because it isn't just, hey, let's throw a party, let's raise money, and then, let's call it a day. And I shouldn't say let's call it a day. Like we've already established, like there's a whole lot that is involved in this. But I love the fact that you're taking it beyond, and it is you going to Capitol Hill, and it is you spreading awareness, which is one of the things that Resolve and National Infertility Week is all about, of spreading awareness of this isn't just, something that pops up randomly in People magazine, or, a friend of a friend. So many more people are struggling with infertility than you are even aware of,
yeah.
and don't have access, or and have the inability. don't have the ability to have a grant, or I mean, gosh, just like you said, the insurance aspect alone, I it's so minimal. I mean, it's gotten so much better, I feel like, over the
Yeah,
last 4 or 5 years of insurance actually covering certain things, but it's a lot.
it
It's a
is.
lot.
It is a lot of things, and the thing that we were honed in on when we were going through this brand strategy session was we didn't want to be the classic FUD nonprofit that focused on how hard it was and all the negatives and
Yeah.
everything like that. I always like to reference like the Sarah McLachlan commercial where there's like a
Yes,
fly
absolutely.
landing on
Oh,
someone's
and you have to
eye.
mute it, and then the
Yeah,
puppies, and it's yeah. Oh
yeah.
no, 100%.
We felt that was for yesterday's nonprofit, and one of the things we came up with was like, one, we wanted a positive spin, and two, we didn't want to be your grandparents nonprofit because there were so many
Mm,
problems with those nonprofits. There was a lack of transparency of knowing where
yeah,
the money was going and not really resonating with the cause, right?
yeah,
And so like,
yeah,
how do you build that strong connection? And we landed on something beautiful, which is that we wanted to focus on the magic of surrogacy, that
yeah.
through all this complexity, through all this hard work, even before the surrogacy process,
Mhm.
resulted in giving someone the gift of family,
Yeah.
right? And what role could we play in that? I'll tell you, we could be not your grandparents nonprofit. We could focus on transparency, on bringing in a new generation of donors. But then we also had to be someone's contemporary guide, right? Because right now, as people go to search for information, it is overwhelming,
Yeah.
right? And the only people that are providing information are the people that you have to work with. And a lot of those people are providing really good information, like egg donor and surrogate solutions. But who's right? Because you may go to two different places and get two
Mhm.
different like pieces of information. And also, at least for like a lot of heterosexual couples, they go through a lot of trauma to get to this point, and it's
Yeah.
hard to talk to a human. So how
Yeah.
could we cater to that? What did that mean for us? And what we came up with was that surrogacy stuck in this past state. We need to take it to a future state. And the way we're going to do
Mm,
that is by taking it mainstream, by making it talked about as much as IVF is now,
yeah.
and thinking about it about like IVF was about 10, 15 years ago when nobody really talked about it. That's where
Yeah.
surrogacy is now. So can we be that organization that assembles some sort of strategy that allows surrogacy to be considered when people are just thinking about family building, right?
Yes.
And like
Yes.
making that information accessible, but also making consistent information available, right? And
I
so
love
that's what
that.
we are trying to build right now outside of grants. And we continue to grow the grant space is like, how can we educate and support people earlier on in their journeys so that when
Mhm.
they get to professionals like egg donor and surrogate solutions or other agencies or lawyers or what have you,
Mhm.
they've already got a good base set of knowledge.
Yeah.
Because one of the number one reasons that people don't pursue surrogacy is because they're overwhelmed, right?
Absolutely. And just lack of and lack of education. And I think, to your point, almost that negative spin, I think, like, for lack of a better phrase, but yes, that negative spin. I used to say, my mission, let me rephrase. One of the things that I love so much, just as a former surrogate, I love that I mean, my best moments were seeing mom and dad become mom and dad, right? Like, I mean, that was my why. And it was amazing and it was beautiful, and that should be celebrated. And even using the phrase like alternative family building, I'm like, take out the alternative.
Yeah.
This is just a different, this is family building. That's what
Right.
it is. Whether you're, if you're a heterosexual couple and, you're going about it in the quote typical way, like, it should just be considered family building. And this is just one other path. And I feel like, exactly to your point, I love the way that you said that, of bringing more awareness to it and taking out the, Sarah McLachlan vibes of it all.
And the stigma, right? There's this huge
Yes.
stigma around surrogacy. Like even just today on LinkedIn on one of our posts, I get a comment that it's like sex trafficking or child trafficking.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm like,
Yes.
are you kidding me? Like, did you
Right?
watch the video of these people that just want to grow their family for the past 10 years and this is their only option?
Yes.
Right. But we don't do ourselves any favors in this industry. There is a lot of fraud in the industry too. And that's
Yeah.
the stuff that makes the news. We
Yes.
have to change the narrative. We've got to
Yes.
change the narrative to show all of the amazing magic that happens as a
Yes.
result of the surrogacy journey. And also, that will help bring awareness to the point where we can start to prevent things like fraud happening and start to bring regulation into the space and make it a space where people feel safe because it's
Mhm.
simply, like you said, another option for family building.
Yes, no, I completely agree, which is why things like seeds ethics is so important. And,
Mhm.
one of the biggest things that fortunately or unfortunately, right, people are all over Facebook and social media, and, some people are doing independent matches and things like that. But it, that can only take, I mean, there's so many in an industry or in a situation that isn't always guaranteed. Why would you add any more stress and scary when and not choose your people based off of, like you said, those ethical standards and having those professionals around you? And I always refer people, I'm like, if you're looking at agencies, go look at seeds ethics. Like, at least, like, start there. Just
Start
start
there.
there. Like,
Yeah.
that at least is a good base point of, to your point, education, and not necessarily feeling overwhelmed. Because yeah, if you Google surrogacy, woo, it goes
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, and you can end up in those Facebook groups, and the loudest people in those Facebook groups are not the best people to listen to, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're the
Mm-hmm.
people that have had some experience that they're trying to explain to everybody is terrible and all that kind of stuff. Whereas, like,
Yeah.
so a lot of the people that have gone through this journey that have experienced that magic and are now holding a baby or multiple babies in their arms, like, they're not in those groups, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're not the ones that are like, oh my gosh, it's amazing, da 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 da. And so, like, how do we bridge the gap? How do we take it from this stigma, misunderstood, to
Mm-hmm.
accepted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
celebrated?
Yeah.
That's what's really important. And that is exactly what we're trying to do through our many different channels and through our many different partners and our wonderful supporters in Village.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, clearly the Surrogacy Foundation is clearly not just a grant. Like, I mean, it's like it's all encompassing. And I mean, I hear your passion and it just makes me excited. And yes, it should be celebrated. I mean, my goodness, I went through half a box of tissues whenever I was on your website and listening to the beautiful story of the couple that just, received their grant and got matched, and just all of those things. I mean, it's so beautiful, and it should be celebrated. And I love that you and your wife are paying it forward in this way. I Okay, you mentioned and you guys, I think you said it in your intro video that's on your website. You mentioned you're Jewish, and there's a word that you guys use, right, for
Sadaka.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, say it again.
Sadaka.
Sadaka.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So, like, at the most fundamental level, like, my kids, what they know is that they put money in a piggy bank and it goes to charity, right? But, like, it
Mm.
really means, like, righteousness, right? And, like,
Yeah.
righteousness through giving back and understanding that while it's really important and you absolutely should prioritize your nuclear family, you're
Yeah.
part of a tribe. You're part of a
Mhm.
bigger community, and you need to do what you can to help those who can't help themselves, right? And so, like,
Yeah.
that has, like, fueled our fire to make this happen. One, because it resonates, right, obviously through our experience, but two, because we feel like it's our duty to do
Yeah.
something like that. And when our kids come to our events, like my son has come for 2 years now to these events, and
Yeah.
having him on stage and holding him and letting him see all these people that are coming out to support us,
Mm.
there's no greater feeling in the world, because he asked me, when am I going to be able to run the Surrogacy Foundation? Right?
Oh,
Like,
I love
it's just,
that.
it's beautiful.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So, what for, I feel like there's almost, and maybe this isn't fair, but I think in my experience, when I talk to intended parents, you have some intended parents who they are traumatized, for lack of a better phrase, or they've gone through so much just to hold that baby in their arms, and they almost want to, like, okay, I did it, I need to close this chapter, I just want to be done, and to your point, focus on just that nuclear family. And that is beautiful, and that is perfect, and that makes so much sense. And then you have this, you sometimes have another type of intended parent who is, to your point, like, I want to go, like, I just had this amazing thing happen, I want to tell more people about that. For both sets, or I don't want to, like, make it bilateral, but just for that spectrum, let's say, what would you maybe what are maybe some ways that other intended parents could pay it forward in this space within what makes sense to them, within their comfort level?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, I hate to sound super simple here, but like, just tell your story publicly, right?
Yeah. I don't think that's
That's the,
simple. I don't think that's
yeah,
simple. I think that's
that's,
beautiful.
it's like, it is okay to consider this a very hard thing and to
Mhm.
not want to publicize it. But just know that if you're willing to take that extra step, even if it's word of mouth, it doesn't have to be social media, right?
No, yeah.
Word of mouth, telling people and normalizing the journey, right? And just being
Yeah.
like, hey, that's how I grew my family, right?
Mhm.
And look at this beautiful baby I have here, right? And
Yeah.
like we would not have had this opportunity but for surrogacy,
Mhm.
right? Is
Mhm.
like, that's huge. But we also have to focus on how are we going to help the people that don't want to do that, right? And
Yeah.
like, one of the big things that we're building right now is this technology assisted kind of digital companion for surrogacy, or if you want to get simple, a chatbot,
Yep.
right?
Love it.
And like, I think when I've talked to a lot of intended parents, you've probably talked to 10 times as many as me, like, their number one thing they say to me is, oh, they give me a deep breath, like, oh, thank God I could talk to somebody that understands
You
what
could
I'm
just get
going
it.
through. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it takes
Yeah.
so long to get to that point to talk to the human. And so when we were thinking about how can we have a scalable impact on parents, regardless of whether they want to be donors or they want to tell their stories or anything
Mhm.
like that, how can we
Mhm.
provide support and education to the other group, which by the way is the overwhelming majority, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah.
how would it feel if you were in bed at midnight and you're worried? Maybe you've had one failed IVF transfer, maybe you're going through cancer treatments, what have you, about how you're going to build your family. And you go down the deep, dark hole of Facebook message boards and things like that.
Oh gosh,
And you're
yes,
not
which
ready to
I'm
talk
like,
to a human. And you're like,
"No, double-edged sword, don't do it."
right? Right?
Yes.
And like, I'm like, well, what if we became that trusted companion that you could go to our website
Mm.
and you could simply have a conversation with someone or something that's not going to judge you. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter what time of day it is. It doesn't matter what questions you ask. It's going to
yeah.
tell you, hey, here's the list of information that we have, and it's been curated by these people. And
Mhm.
listen, this is what we're not going to talk to you about when you should go talk to a human, right?
Yeah,
That's this
yeah.
grand vision. And it all starts with one thing, which is people don't know where to go to get financial education or support in this space because there's no list that gets updated continuously. So, our first step is simply creating a database where people can tell us, hey, I'm from this area. I'm at this stage of my journey. I've suffered with these medical conditions. Who
Mhm.
can I talk to? And then being able to provide them
Mm.
verified information, right? That says these
Yes.
organizations are available to you. And then committing ourselves to constantly updating that information, and then growing into the education piece where you can ask, what is the legal process around surrogacy? What
Yeah.
are these surrogates asking for? How should I treat them? What kind of autonomy should I give them? All these hard questions that nobody thinks about until they're in a journey. We want to be
Uh-huh.
able to provide some context. And then hopefully when they get to the point where they feel really comfortable, they can start to reach out to the professionals, and they already know to an extent what to expect. And the number one thing is, all of the no's that even your agency and every single professional is having to tell people now turn into yeses because
Yeah.
people are more prepared to do it.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's beautiful because I think you're so right. I mean, for better or for worse, we're in a day and age where we are relying so much on, just Dr. Google, I call it, and those Facebook message boards and things like that. And it is, I mean, to your point, it's 2 a.m. You're freaking out. It's not like you can call up, your bestie, and even your bestie doesn't necessarily know what you're going through. And so just to have that little bridge of, technology to kind of, if anything, just get you started.
Right.
And like you said, get you comfortable. So then the questions that you do end up asking those professionals are like your personal curated, like, to me, how does this relate to my journey? Not just a journey in general, but my journey.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's why, like, while we're building this thing and we're going through like this major campaign around how do we provide unfiltered information to the social media world so that they
Uh-huh.
can know they're not alone, right? And where that
Mm.
has blossomed is like our current grantees and surrogate are actually like interviewing people. They're doing reverse interviews of professionals in the space to ask those tough questions, those burning questions that
Yeah.
they've had early on that they haven't been able to get answered. And hopefully people start to see those stories. And then they also see them going through the journey, right? They
Mhm.
see stage
Mhm.
one, they see stage two, and it's broken down in a way. And we've got like these 7 stages, which are obviously a little bit of a oversimplification, but a way that it's actually digestible. And
Yeah.
they can see, oh my gosh, their journey from like just fertility treatment was like a year and a half. That's
Yeah.
okay. Mine's okay. I've been doing this for 6 months and I'm feeling pretty good about this. Or, when I was selecting an agency, I didn't even think to ask them those questions. So when I'm
Mhm.
going and I'm going through the agency selection, that's what I'm thinking about. Or when I'm matching with a surrogate, what are the kind of questions that are okay to ask? What kind of relationship should we have? What's the
Good.
balance of understanding that they should be compensated because of all the sacrifice they're making versus the altruistic side in the relationship we're going to have after this, and so
Yes.
on. They don't necessarily, they can't do that now. It's done on the fly. And
Yeah.
so we want to be that place they can go to for that stuff and
Mhm.
just understand they're not alone.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I feel like at Egg Donor and Surrogate Solutions, I think we do an amazing job in the education process for both intended parents and surrogate. And we do ask those questions and guide individuals through all of those parts. But to your point, just to even find us can be so overwhelming. And so to have you guys as kind of the compass for to get you here, there, and everywhere is beautiful. What, and you probably have already, you kind of already alluded to it, with just the dreaming that you guys are already doing and all of the processes. But what would you say is maybe the ultimate hope for the Surrogacy Foundation in the next 5 years?
I'm hoping that through offering grants and building a reputation within the community and starting to truly understand who intended parents are and who
Hmm.
surrogates are, that we want to increase access to surrogacy. Now it sounds simple, right? But there's a reason that it's so important to address right now and why
Hmm.
we've got to start right now so that in 5 years we can get to that grand vision. Number
Yeah.
one, infertility rates are skyrocketing, right? We
Hmm.
see every single year a new report is released, and we went from 1 in 8 to 1 in 6 to 1 in 5, and who knows, maybe it's 1 in 4 next time. And
Yeah.
all of the reasons are starting to increase too. So you're seeing a rise in cancer rate amongst young people every single year for the past 20 years, right?
Hmm.
You're seeing a
Hmm.
lot of LGBTQ folks that want to grow their family and they should be
Absolutely.
able to, right? And then
Yes.
there's also a cultural aspect, which is that more people are waiting to have kids because they want to advance their career further. They want to be able to
Absolutely.
provide better lives for their kids. And guess what happens at 35? You're called geriatric, right?
It
In
is the
terms of
most offensive. I mean, oh my gosh, medical. Can we not get a better word? I am just like, excuse me, at 35, no one is handing me a cane. Can we not?
Right, right. And it's like, but there's a reason, right? That's
There's a
not the best
reason.
word.
Yes,
But
no,
at
no one wants
35,
my eggs. I can't be an egg donor. No one wants mine. Like, no.
right. And so it's like all these things are not getting better, and there's
Yeah.
no shade at the people that are waiting to have kids. I totally empathize with that. I look around my neighborhood and I see every single parent in my neighborhood is at least 4 years older than me and has kids my age or younger. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm
No,
38,
for
just
sure.
for reference here. Like I'm not young, but I'm like one of the youngest parents in my neighborhood. And so, like,
Yeah.
if we
Well,
play
and to
into
your
these,
point, like kids are expensive. So people are waiting longer because like, hi, no one can afford daycare at this point. Like, I mean, yeah.
yeah, daycare is 20, sometimes 15, 20, $25,000 a year,
I can't.
like
I
private
can't.
school,
Yes.
right? And so it's like
Yes.
really hard to think about like, how am I going to do that? So you have this reason, this tipping point that's
Yeah.
happening, which is
Yeah.
that we need to start now. The
Uh-huh.
other thing is that we've talked a lot about is the financial barriers.
Yeah.
When I went through surrogacy in 2021, I paid $120,000 to complete my journey and almost nothing went wrong, right? Almost nothing. We had to have a C-section in the middle. We had some insurance that we had to purchase, but for the most part, we were there. Right now, we're not 100% confident that $100,000 plus all these free services and discounts is going to cover the cost, because it's gone from 120 to 150 minimum, and
Mhm.
oftentimes way more than that. And
Yeah.
so we have to think about, like, what is it that's going to help us with these financial barriers? And so we think about our grants, but we think about our grants as like notches on an application to start to build,
Mm.
like, hey, look, proof. All these people can't afford it. Look how many people applied for our grants. Look how many people we had to say no to. Look how much
Sure.
money we have to provide to these people to complete this journey. Then
Sure.
then there's that idea of education that we've spoken a lot about. And so, like, how do you overcome this like big complicated process that's overwhelming for people? You provide them education earlier, and then you have to think about the stigma, and like, how do I overcome that stigma and make it more accepted? And that's simply
Mhm.
by talking about it more and getting people who have been talking about it to talk about it more. And what's the end result? What's the answer to your question? Let's imagine a world where everybody who wants to build their family can actually do so. That's
Mm.
the end goal. And there's a lot of steps to get there, but if we have succeeded, that is the mindset that we want to have for anybody growing their family.
Yeah. I mean, that's the dream.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the dream.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That it's beautiful. What if you could give any advice just from one intended parent to another, or even from, the CEO founder of the Surrogacy Foundation, what advice would you give to an intended parent who is maybe just starting on this path?
I would say celebrate the journey over the
Mm,
destination, right? It
yes.
sounds counterintuitive because the baby is what you want at the end of the day, and that's what you're
Yeah.
fighting for. But every single step of the way, there are people out there to support you. There are organizations like ours that will help you get through that. There are people who have gone through what you've gone through,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I know everybody has a unique story, but you need to understand that, like, you can reach out and you can see these people and you can see it happen, and just appreciate every single little win across the way. The
Mm-hmm.
first one may be having a successful egg retrieval. The second one may be having, genetically tested euploid embryos, right? That are going to have a
Yeah.
high chance of taking. The third thing may be finding that agency that you work with, or that surrogate that you vibe with, right?
Yeah.
Every single step, make sure you celebrate that journey, because there's
Mm-hmm.
going to be bumps in the road. It's
Yeah.
not going to be a straight up and to the right journey. As you'll see when you look at different things in our on our website and things, it's a winding path. It's up
For
and
sure.
down and
Yeah.
everything like that.
Yes. Celebrating every single one of those moments. And I think one of the things that I also love that I hear your passion, and it sounds like almost just a base, a key to the Surrogacy Foundation is that aspect of community, because infertility can feel so lonely, especially whenever, to your point, people aren't sharing their story. And so you don't maybe know that your neighbor, friend, just some acquaintance somewhere is also struggling or had struggled. And the fact that, like, community just, it makes you feel less lonely in something that is so hard. And I love that idea of being able to reach out and start there and finding that person who can be excited and understand whenever you say, I had a successful egg retrieval, or our genetic testing came back and it was great, or, just being having somebody as part of that community celebrating those little wins, instead of looking at, maybe your mom or your dad or your sister or your brother and them being like, okay, but what does that mean? I don't understand.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, what we always sum it up is like building a village,
Yeah.
right? A
Yeah.
village of experts and supporters, whether that's people who've been through it or professionals or our organization that's there.
Yeah.
And the way that we tell people that we're going to do that is we say, we bring the village to you,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
that's our goal. It's like, how do we bring this to you so that you don't have to go off and spend countless anxiety stricken hours searching for it?
Yeah.
This is the place to go, because at the end of the day, it's the community that gets you through these tough moments. It's the village that's there to support you. And ultimately, that's who you need to pay it forward with,
Yeah.
right? Afterwards is like, how can I help become part of someone else's village that it was in that spot that I was in?
That's beautiful. So, for our listeners, if you want to go and find out more about the Surrogacy Foundation, where do they go?
I go to thesurrogacyfoundation.org. We have a beautiful new website with our beautiful new brand.
Yes, it
Talks
is.
about this kind of like the way that we're thinking about it, and we're hoping that if we tell people exactly what we're doing, if we celebrate the journey, and there's no secret to this, by the way. Like
Mhm.
nonprofits don't work without
Yeah,
donors, right?
yeah.
And so we want to create an organization that not only makes donors do good,
Mhm.
but we want them to feel good about what they're
Mm.
doing. One of the most provocative statements that my cousin came up with during this is trading dollars for dopamine,
I love
right?
it actually. No, that's amazing.
Right? And that's what we want. We want you to be connected, whether you've been through it, haven't been through it, you're a professional serving in the space. We want you to be connected to these different parts in the journey so that it's not just putting your money into a black
Yeah.
box. We want you to understand that. We want you to be able to choose, oh, this is what resonated with me,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And then we try to pull back this idea of transparency even further, which is that we're going to start to attribute where every single dollar goes. We want you to know that right now we're in growth mode.
There you
So
go.
not every dollar is going to grants, right?
Yeah.
We are trying to raise money for grants, but we know that we have to increase our reach.
Mhm.
So we're spending on things like developing the chatbot,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And all these different aspects, and we're not hiding it. The other thing is like a lot of people hide their grant process. What? Like you
Mm.
definitely should not hide your grant process. So if you go through and you want to learn anything about that, reach out to us. I'll sit on a call with you and explain
Yeah.
it to you. There's an easy contact us button on the
There
website
sure
too.
is. It's very
Yeah.
obvious.
And maybe you're not ready to talk to a human yet,
Yeah.
right? And the chatbot isn't released. The thing that I can tell you is go follow like at the Surrogacy Foundation on Instagram and Facebook, and go follow at Magic of Surrogacy underscore TSF. That's actually a new account that we've just created in collaboration with our grantees. And we're going to be highlighting every single step of their journey and what got them
Mm.
to that point so that you can see that you're not alone in this, and you can see the raw unfiltered moments that led to this point in their journey, which by the way isn't the destination.
Yeah.
We can celebrate that journey
Yeah.
along the way.
Oh, that's beautiful. So, if you are you guys taking applications right now, or what is the tell me more. Where are we
Yeah,
at?
yeah. So the next grant application that we open should be this summer.
Okay.
It's going to be our national grant
There
application,
you
but as
go.
one can imagine, there's a lot of steps before going from Georgia to
To
national. And so
national.
current, yeah, right now what we're doing is we're assembling a group of professionals that's going to expand our review committee. We're making sure that they understand what's required of them in order
Mhm.
to review these applications. But when we do open the application, there'll be a 90-day period, right? So you'll have some time to fill out the application. Like I said, it's built out in this software so that it's super easy to use,
Mhm.
and you can reach out to us if you need support
Mhm.
along the way. And then once that period closes, our review period in our 2 years has been 30 to 60 days.
That's great.
And so you'll actually have a decision within 6 months from the date of opening the application to the time that we decide who our winner is.
Mhm.
And so you'll have that opportunity to do that, hopefully before year ends. But we want to make sure we do
Yeah.
it right.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
No, that's amazing. Well, Zach, I really do just appreciate your time. And I mean, your passion is just contagious. And I love everything that the Surrogacy Foundation is doing. And I am just so grateful that you and your wife had this aha tap on the shoulder moment. And I love just all of the change and celebrating that you are doing in this space that we all hold so near and dear to our heart. I have one last question for you, and it's a fun one. For anyone, and I know you've seen me sipping on my coffee this whole time. Me and coffee have a very codependent relationship on each other. And so I always like to ask the question, what filled your cup today? Literally or figuratively, what has been the thing that has filled your cup today?
Well, I would say figuratively, going to yoga this morning fills my cup.
Nice.
I'm a recent yogi over the past 6 months. I go 5 to 6 times a week now. and it has changed my life in the
Yeah.
best way possible. It just the mindset, the breath work, everything about it has just changed my energy and the people that I've
Mm,
connected with
yeah.
throughout this space. But I also filled my cup with a cold brew this morning
Oh,
after yoga.
love it.
So
Yes, absolutely. No, that's good. That's mind, body, soul right there. That's all I heard.
yeah, exactly. I love it. Good balance.
Good balance. That's amazing. Well, Zach, thank you so much. And all of those links and everything are going to be on our show notes. So listeners, go and check out the Surrogacy Foundation.
Yeah, and can I say thank you, Whitney?
Yeah.
What you're doing is a huge part of taking surrogacy mainstream, creating these real conversations with people where you talk about the nitty gritty around surrogacy is actually what makes it okay to pursue it. And also, like, shout out to your boss, Katie. She's an amazing human.
She
That's
is.
the help that she's provided, everything that she has done to help our organization and to help surrogacy proliferate through her board position on seeds and everything like that is just it's all helping further this mission of accessible surrogacy. So you very lucky. We're also very lucky to have you as a podcast host because you're freaking
Oh,
awesome.
thank you.
Uh, and I can't wait to listen to all your episodes because it's so helpful. So
Oh,
thank you.
thank you so much, Zach. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Me, You, and Who. We appreciate your time and hope you enjoyed our discussion today. As we wrap, we would like to remind you of some of the ways that you can stay connected with us and be part of the Me, You, and Who podcast community. Firstly, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode and can stay up to date with our latest content. But that's not all. We also have an exciting YouTube channel where we share some bonus content, behind the scenes glimpses, and video versions of our episodes. Head over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button there as well. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when the new episodes go live. And for more exclusive updates, engaging discussions, and a chance to connect with fellow listeners. Be sure to follow us on our social media accounts. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Create a Happy Family. If you're interested in finding out more about creating a happy family, please visit us at www.createahappyfamily.com. Thank you again for being part of the Me, You, and Who community. Your support means the world to us. I can't wait for you to join us next time as we continue to share stories and journeys of creating happy families.